Our next guest is the founder of an organization that bridges the gap between public funding and the needs of firefighters, so they have the best available equipment, technology, and training. Take a look.
Every day, America's firefighters face impossible odds. The world is changing. The threats are growing. But the tools they need haven't kept up.
We don't just put out fires. Whenever anybody needs something fixed, they call the fire department. Water leaks, stuck elevators, medical calls. When you cut budgets, the fire service is first on the list because we're going to do the job. We never walk away from a challenge. We never walk away from a fire. It's what we do. It's who we are.
Barnacle, though. Barnacle has the first question. You grew up reading Barnacle, right?
Mm-hmm.
His mother, Dennis can't read. His mother used to read me all the time. He still can't.
I can read the sports section, which is primarily what I read.
But you know, you should point out to people, as I'm sure you will, that this is not a newfound obsession for you, helping firefighters. You grew up where I was born in Worcester, Massachusetts, where you're surrounded on the streets you live by people who work for a living, cops and firefighters, everything like that. There was a tragic fire in Worcester in 1999, almost on Christmas Eve. So talk about your background and your lifetime role in firefighting, helping firefighters.
Well, growing up, a bunch of guys that I grew up with, we all went to the same school, same neighborhood, where the fire was, actually, in downtown Worcester, Main South. They became firefighters or cops after we graduated. And one of them was my cousin, Jerry Lucy, who always wanted to be a firefighter, became a firefighter in Worcester, a great firefighter. He died along with 5 other men in the Worcester Cold Storage Warehouse fire, December 3rd of 1999. It was a very famous fire at the time. It was a big tragedy. The President Clinton, Ted Kennedy, they all came to speak at the memorial. Anyways, my cousin Jerry, he was adamant the entire time that he was working in the Worcester Fire Department about how underfunded they were and departments across the country, and how bad their training facilities were, how bad their equipment was. He was the person, along with a friend of mine named Terry Quinn, who became a firefighter when we were in our 20s here with the FDNY. Those were the two people and their crews, because you get to know those people. Their crews become part of your family. Like my cousin Jerry's crew were the guys who would fix my mom's porch because my brother and I are not very handy. So that's the way the fire department is. They become part of your life. So I was aware of how underfunded fire departments were. And the fact is, it's still the same truth now, 25 years after I started the foundation. The reason that big departments like New York and tiny departments all over the country are underfunded is because they don't go on strike. So when they're cutting the government budgets, they look at the sanitation workers and they realize if we cut their budget, they'll go on strike and there'll be garbage all over the streets and people will be pissed off. If you cut the education budget, the teachers go on strike and your kids don't go to school, people get pissed off. But firefighters, you cut their budget, they still put out the fires. So it makes sense why they do it, but it's so dangerous. So what we have done from the beginning, and we still do, is we raise money at our events, and within 6 months to a year, I can show you physically where your money went. A building takes longer to build. We build buildings, we build training facilities, but a truck, a vehicle, a tool, a piece of equipment, you will see it actually bought and placed into those firefighters' hands. And usually, like I've had videos from departments where we sent them thermal imaging cameras where they're unwrapping. They show the video of them getting the gift from us, taking out of the boxes, and then the alarm goes off and they jump on the rig with the thermal imaging camera or the Halligan, whatever it is. And I try to tell people, like, we build things. We built a high-rise simulator for the FDNY after 9/11. They didn't have a tall building to practice firefighting in. And that was a big project, but also Halligans, tiny pieces of equipment that firefighters use every day. A tool. It's a $300 tool.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money for a firefighter, right? But it's a tool they need to carry into every call, right? So every dollar, even if you can make a big donation, it's great. If you can't, if you send a dollar will make a difference because I can buy a Halligan or I can buy a helmet or whatever it might be.
Go to the website for that, Dennis?
Yes. Go to LearyFirefighters.org and you can donate. You can donate. Our event is very exciting. There's a lot of famous people there, and there's a lot of great firefighters there. And it's exciting on Instagram. But while you're watching it happen tomorrow, you can donate. And like I said, you can donate $1. You can donate a lot more if you want, but every dollar makes a difference.
By the way, we got a huge Massachusetts majority here. We got Worcester, we got Fitchburg, we got Lowell, outnumbered here.
Yeah,
this morning.
the Midwest.
It's tough. And Jersey, come on.
Well, listen. That's Massachusetts controls the world, as we all
clearly,
know, right?
Clearly.
Yeah.
Hard to believe, but I was just reminded of this the other day that we're coming up on 25 years of 9/11. 25 years, the anniversary, which in part inspired you to create your incredible show Rescue Me on FX, where you played in New York City, third generation firefighter, I think it was. What are your reflections about not just 9/11, but about firefighters, how America came to appreciate them probably more, and where they are today, firefighting?
Well, you guys know this because we're all New Yorkers, right? We spend a lot of time here. We were just talking about this in the dressing room, how united the country was at that time, right, 25 years ago, and how beloved New York was, and how full New York was as they dug on that pile through the course of the fall after 9/11, right, to find the bodies. How people from all over the country came to visit here, and how strong. And look at us now. Look how divided the country is now. It's insanity. The one thing we can all agree on, I think, is, charity-wise, is that firefighters, everybody still loves firefighters. Yep. It's just amazing, though, to look at the gigantic difference between then and now in terms of how united the country was. But also, the thing I remember, I will never forget this, is my friend Terry Quinn's house. They survived. All the guys in that house survived, but their trucks got crushed. Their engine and their ladder got crushed when the buildings came down. All the guys survived. So they, for weeks, months afterwards, up a 22 truck up on the Upper West Side. They had their pickup trucks and their SUVs parked in front of the firehouse because that's how they were answering the fires. Because we all forget it was 9/11, but fires were still happening. Yeah. Emergency calls were still. So guys were jumping in their, speaking of equipment and charity, they were jumping into their pickup trucks and their SUVs and their cars with Halligans and their bunker gear to drive 8 blocks to try to put out a fire. Yeah. Now that, to me, sums up what firefighting is all about.
So I was at the New York Daily News as a reporter at the time. I covered the FDNY that day in the aftermath as it was rebuilt. And obviously a lot of firefighters are still dealing with illnesses and the like that have come from Ground Zero. So talk to us, just you know the FDNY so well. Talk to us about how it still, as 25-year approaches, how it still hovers over the department.
Well, they've lost now more firefighters. It was 343 that we lost on that day, which is a famous number in the fire department. And I think to some Americans, right, and people around the world, they've now lost more firefighters than that. Yeah. I forget what the count is, but it's like 350-something. Firefighters who died from 9/11 related cancer, from being on the pile looking for their comrades and for the people who died in the buildings that day. That's pretty amazing. Yeah. So it's still reaching back and grabbing people, that day. So I always look at this thing like this, and I know I'm prejudiced because I'm here for firefighters, and I don't mean to make them stand apart from other people like the cops and everybody else and the military people who served that day and help America recover. But that's my charity. So I want to make their job the safest because I want them to go home. But it's selfishly, it helps us. They should be the best funded and the best equipped that they can be because we want them. They pull your cat out of a tree. They save your mom when she has a heart attack. They save you when you're in a car crash and they have to cut you out. Everything you can think possibly happening that goes bad. Something like a traffic accident on the Upper West Side, on the West Side Highway right now as we speak. Yeah. Or, again, your dog is stuck in a sewer. Guess who's coming? It's the fire department. So I love them. I love what they do, and I want them to do it with the best equipment and the best tools imaginable.
Dennis, I grew up with a father who was a volunteer firefighter in a very rural community where I lived when I was young. And so we chased fires. He would make us get in the back seat of the car and we'd have to stay in the car and he'd go and try to help fight fires in rural communities.
That's awesome.
And then I ended up becoming an arson prosecutor and spent a lot of time with fire department in Kansas City trying to help them figure out how to investigate arson fires. What has your charity been able to do for rural fire departments? Because I see an incredible need in rural communities in this country where there isn't the kind of budget infrastructure. And those firefighters have real issues in terms of training. Many of them are volunteers.
Yeah.
Many of them aren't even getting paid. Have you all figured out a way to reach your charity into some of those communities?
Yes, we do. We do volleys as well as professional firefighters. And again, you're making a great point, which is, I know people even listening to us right now talk about this will think, oh no, the suburban firefighters, they're all set. I see their big, beautiful fire. Yeah, in very, very wealthy suburban communities, or even some small towns that really care about their fire departments, the fire department may be all set. But we get, again, I hate to say this, but it's just true. As the years go by, our requests for grants increase every year, and they have since we started the foundation. And a lot of that is rural volunteer departments that have, I mean, the FDNY might need something, but they obviously have a lot, but they may need help. Some of these rural departments,
they're desperate.
They need help. They literally need help every year. They need everything. They need everything from ATVs, which are too expensive, but thermal imaging cameras. They need everything. Sometimes they need bunker gear or washer dryers now, because there are special washer dryers to prevent cancer that you need to wash your bunker gear and your other equipment in. But they need everything. So that's a big part of what we do. I mean, every year we get so many requests from small departments, as well as big,
Yeah. Dennis, I want to end on a personal note. You may not even remember this. 18 years ago, about almost 18 years ago to the day, I talked to you. You were on the show. I had a son that was born who was a preemie. He's about 2 pounds. It's touch and go. And it was just one of those moments where you didn't know what was going to happen. And I was scared out of my mind. I was shaken. It was like the first time I felt out of control of the situation. And you came up to me and said, hey, I hear you're going through a problem. And then you told me an extraordinary story about what happened to you and your son. And you said, I want to show you my son, my preemie son, who we didn't know whether to live or die. And you took out a picture of this 6'4" hockey player dwarfing you and your wife. And I only saw the picture for a second because I started tearing up. And I want you to know that helped me so much. And unbelievably, 18 years later, Willie can tell you, I'm a pretty big guy. I'm like 6'4", but if there were a picture of Jack and me, Jack would dwarf me. The same thing happened. He's a big guy. Willie will tell you, we've been out. He's bigger than both of us, and we're both about 6'3", 6'4". But I just want to tell you, it's incredible the hope you gave me. And just tell this story really quickly, because, there are moms and dads that are probably going through this right now. But I just, 18 years later, as he comes up on his 18th birthday, I want to thank you for that moment. It's something I always will be grateful for.
It's funny. I've done that a couple of times with people, because you can only just try to tell your truth, right? But I knew, right? Because I still remember, God, it's like we're talking about 9/11. You remember where you were that day, or it was such a. It's still right below the surface when I think about my son. My son was born 3 months premature, right. And we didn't know anything. I was not famous yet. I was an unknown comedian with no money, no credit cards, nothing. And my wife was pregnant, and she came with me to London because her doctor said she could. She was 6 months, just barely 6 months. And I was doing an appearance on a variety show there with David Bowie. I was the American comedian. There was a British comedian, and a couple of British comedians, and David Bowie. Anyways, her water broke. We went into an emergency room a few blocks from the hotel they booked us into. And thank God it ended up being this guy, Dr. Griffin, who was the preeminent prenatal care guy and premature baby guy in the world. That's how he wrote books. He was in charge of that prenatal unit there and that premature unit.
Wow.
Anyways, we were there. We had the baby 3 months early. He was tiny, and we got through it. And it actually made a big difference in my career, because I ended up writing No Cure for Cancer. I had been writing it anyways, but I put it on at the Edinburgh Festival because we couldn't leave. And that started my career. Anyways, my son is now 6'7". Wow. He's getting married August 1st. Yeah. Anyways, it became this thing where I started to talk to more people, and they were like, my son was premature or my daughter was premature, and now look at them, right? So that's why I tell the story to people. I remember when you were telling the story now, when people, it still happens. People go, oh, my son's premature. Somebody who worked for me, this woman who worked for me for a long time, her kid was premature as well. And I go, listen, this is what can happen. I don't have science to back it up, but it seems like kids that are born that premature, for some reason, they end up really strong and healthy and big later in life.
They're fighters.
6, 7.
They're fighters.
Well,
they learn early to be fighters.
The 10th
I'm glad to
annual
hear that,
firefighter.
Joe.
No.
Well, thank you again.
He's wonderful. The 10th annual Firefighter Challenge event takes place tomorrow at the FDNY's premier training facility on Randall's Island, known as The Rock. Founder of the Leary Firefighters Foundation, actor and comedian Dennis Leary. Thank you so much
for
coming on
Thanks,
the
Dennis.
show this morning.